This is Richard Alexander Murdaugh, better known as Alex Murdaugh. He was an American attorney and convicted murderer from South Carolina. Alex Murdaugh was sentenced to life in prison without parole after being convicted of murdering his wife and son. On June 7, 2021, Alex called police from his cell phone at 10:06 p.m., saying he had discovered the bodies of his 22-year-old son Paul and 52-year-old wife Maggie near the dog kennels at the family's hunting lodge located on a 1,772-acre estate in Islandton, South Carolina. The two had been shot with different weapons multiple times. Alex said at first that he had been with his mother, who had dementia, at the time of the killings. It was revealed in October 2021 that the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division had regarded Alex as a person of interest in the homicides since the start of the investigation. In July 2022, Alex Murdaugh was accused of the murder of his wife Maggie and his son Paul. Murdaugh was seeking a distraction from his financial crimes, which were beginning to go public, and to garner sympathy, according to the prosecution. Alex pleaded not guilty then. However, on March 2, 2023, Alex Murdaugh was convicted of both murders. On the following day, he was sentenced to life in prison without parole. Prosecutors requested a life sentence to hold Murdaugh responsible for what they say are decades of lying, stealing, and using his family's considerable clout in their tiny county to his advantage. Any sentence would not have a chance of being released on bail. In the same courtroom where his father, grandfather, and great-grandfather tried cases for more than 80 years, Murdaugh stood before the judge to learn his fate. The Colleton County jury deliberated for less than 3 hours before finding Murdaugh guilty of killing his 22-year-old son Paul with a shotgun and his 52-year-old wife Maggie with a rifle. Prosecutors said that the key piece of evidence was a video locked on his son's cell phone for a year, a video shot minutes before the killings at the same kennels where the bodies would be found. Despite Alex Murdaugh's insistence for 20 months that he hadn't been at the kennels that night, the voices of all three Murdaughs can be heard on the video. When he took the stand in his own defense, the first thing he did admit was that he lied to investigators about being at the kennels, saying he was paranoid of law enforcement because he was addicted to opioids and had pills in his pocket the night of the killings. The weapons used to kill the Murdaughs and other direct evidence like confessions or blood spatter were not available to the prosecutor, but they had a wealth of circumstantial evidence, including a video that put Murdaugh at the scene of the killings 5 minutes before his wife and son stopped using their cell phones forever. Through more than 75 witnesses and nearly 800 pieces of evidence, jurors heard about betrayed friends and clients, Murdaugh's failed attempt to stage his own death in an insurance fraud scheme, a fatal boat crash in which his son was implicated, the housekeeper who died in a fall in the Murdaugh home, and the grisly scene of the killings. The now disbarred attorney admitted to stealing millions of dollars from the family firm and clients, stating that he needed the money to fund his drug habit. Murdaugh was in jail awaiting trial on about 100 other charges ranging from insurance fraud to tax evasion before he was charged with murder. Murdaugh appeared to cry as he denied again and again that he killed his wife, but juror Moyers said he saw through yet another lie. Moyers said he never cried. All he did was blow snot, no tears. I saw his eyes. I was this close to him. This is Lori Deveny. As former Portland attorney, she was sentenced to federal prison for defrauding over 100 clients out of millions of dollars in insurance proceeds and using the stolen money to bankroll a lavish lifestyle. The 57-year-old lawyer was sentenced to 14 years in federal prison and 3 years of supervised release. Deveny was also ordered to pay restitution to her victims in excess of $4.5 million. Court documents show that between April 2011 and May 2019, Deveny used manipulation and deceit to defraud at least 135 clients out of more than $3.8 million in insurance proceeds that she held in a trust on their behalf. Deveny attempted to accomplish her scheme by stealing her clients' identities, forging insurance checks made payable to them, depositing client funds into her personal bank accounts, and continuously lulled clients into a false sense of hope that they would ever receive the money. Deveny's victims were particularly vulnerable to her criminal behavior because they sustained serious brain and bodily injuries and never received the insurance payouts they were owed. Wells Fargo Bank, the IRS, and the Oregon State Bar Client Security Fund suffered losses as a result of Deveny's schemes. The CSF paid some of Deveny's clients partial restitution, which resulted in a loss of more than $1.2 million. This is one of the largest losses in the history of the Oregon State Bar and resulted in the organization raising dues for all members for 2 years to cover the cost of payments. Wells Fargo Bank lost more than $52,000 because Deveny stole and forged a check, and the IRS sustained a tax loss of more than $621,000 when Deveny failed to report the money she stole from her clients on her personal income tax returns. Total losses to all victims of Deveny's crimes were more than $4.5 million. Deveny used the proceeds of her scheme to pay more than $150,000 on foreign and domestic airline tickets, more than $173,000 on African safari and big game hunting trips, $35,000 on taxidermy expenses, $125,000 on home renovations, $195,000 in mortgage payments, more than $220,000 in cigars and related expenses, $58,000 on pet boarding and veterinary costs, $41,000 on recreational vehicle expenses, $50,000 for a Cadillac luxury vehicle, and $60,000 on stays at a luxury nudist resort in Palm Springs, California. Deveny was charged with mail, bank and wire fraud, aggravated identity theft, money laundering, and filing a false tax return by a federal grand jury on Portland on May 7, 2019. She was convicted on June 27, 2022, of one count of each mail, wire, and bank fraud, money laundering, and filing a false tax return. Furthermore, she pleaded guilty to 2 counts of aggravated identity theft. The special agent in charge of the IRS criminal investigation, Brett Crescent, said this about Lori's case. The cruelest thing of all is knowingly providing false hope. Having already suffered losses, Ms. Deveny's clients deserved an attorney who represented their best interests. What they got instead was someone who inflicted more loss. Today, Ms. Deveny is receiving what she never provided her clients, a picture of reality that those who choose to defraud will face the consequences of their actions. This is Michael John Avenatti. He's a former American attorney who is best known for representing adult film actress Stormy Daniels in lawsuits against former U.S. President Donald Trump. Avenatti was accused of trying to extort money from conservative politicians. Since March 2019, Avenatti has been charged with crimes in California and New York, including extortion, tax evasion, fraud, and embezzlement. Avenatti was convicted on February 14, 2020 in New York for extorting Nike. He was sentenced to 30 months in prison on July 8, 2021. Michael Avenatti was sentenced to California to 14 years in prison for stealing about $7.6 million from clients, as well as for tax fraud. The 51-year-old Avenatti has been sentenced for swindling law clients, which included a paraplegic with mental health problems. In separate criminal cases in Manhattan Federal Court, Avenatti received 5 years behind bars for ripping off book deal money of $297,500 from porn star Stormy Daniels, and for stealing book deal money from her. Avenatti has been convicted in California of fraud, embezzlement, tax evasion, and stealing from former client Stormy Daniels since April 2019. Since then, Avenatti has been barred from practicing law in New York and California. Furthermore, the judge ordered Avenatti to pay more than $10.8 million in restitution to 4 clients and to the Internal Revenue Service. 4 counts of wire fraud and 1 count of trying to obstruct the administration of the federal tax code were pleaded guilty by Avenatti, who was already in prison for one of the previous cases. His attempt to interfere with the IRS's efforts to collect more than $3 million owed by Avenatti's coffee business for payroll taxes resulted in the tax charge. The details of Avenatti's scams on the client's victims were different, but the general pattern was the same, said the prosecutors in a sentencing memo. The prosecutors explained that Avenatti would lie about the true terms of the settlement agreement he had negotiated for the client, conceal the settlement payments that the counterparty had made, and secretly take the settlement proceeds that belonged to the client. He would then provide small advances on the supposedly yet-to-be-paid funds to lull the client into not complaining or investigating further. Avenatti first came to widespread public attention in 2018 during Trump's presidency when he represented Stormy Daniels in connection with her having been paid $130,000 by Trump's personal lawyer before the 2016 election in exchange for keeping quiet about a sexual tryst she said they had. Trump denies having an affair with the adult film actress. In 2019, Avenatti was a frequent guest on television news shows where he delighted in verbally attacking Donald Trump and Trump's former personal attorney, Michael Cohen. Avenatti briefly considered launching a presidential campaign, but he abandoned the idea weeks later after he was arrested by Los Angeles police after an accusation of domestic violence by an actress with whom he had been living. The city attorney later decided not to file charges in that case. In a statement, United States Attorney Martin Estrada of the Central District of California called Avenatti a corrupt lawyer who said he was fighting for the little guy. Estrada expressed his opinion, saying that he only cared about his own selfish interests. He used the millions of dollars stolen from his clients to finance his extravagant lifestyle, which included a private jet and race cars. Because of his illegal acts, he has lost his right to practice law in California, and now he'll serve a long prison sentence.